Waivers podcast. Man, what another crazy week in the books. Week 4. We're going to go ahead and look over week 4. Some studs and duds. Just some talking points, some things I wanted to talk about from the week and just looking at the landscape moving forward. And then at the end, we're going to go over some waiver wires for week 5. So stay tuned. Definitely a crazy week. And this whole year has been crazy. I came into the league or to the year thinking that I was going to win basically every championship. And basically it hasn't worked out that way. You know, what's up is down, what's left is right. A lot of very inconsistent performances from people that we thought were studs and guys that we really didn't think were going to do a lot are, really proving us wrong. And so far, it's only 4 weeks in, but the zero running back strategy, it might have something to it going into next year. I guess we'll see how the rest of this year goes on. But going back to week 4, just going over what happened and took place. First, let's go ahead and look at some studs. And some duds. All right, so I got this broken up here by position. Let's go with the studs first. Old man Tom Brady making his way back. That's what we thought the Tampa Bay offense would look like. So definitely missing those top receivers really hurt throughout the first 3 weeks. Really rebounded on week 4. Went 38 completions of 52, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. Mike Evans had a big game. Jared Goff and Geno Smith, they both played against each other. An amazing, crazy shootout game. Over, I think, 90 points or 85 points scored. So, of course, they're both on this list. First is Jared Goff. He went 26 of 39, 378 yards, 4 touchdowns. Geno Smith, 23 out of 30, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also added 7 rushing attempts, 49 yards, and another touchdown. Geno Smith has definitely been a bright spot for Seattle, and nobody really thought that he would do that, myself including. And it's really outshining Russell Wilson at this point with their new positions. Moving on to running backs, Josh Jacobs killed it this week. 28 rushing attempts, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 receptions on 6 targets for 31 yards. Definitely killed it. Austin Eckler, 13 attempts, 60 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 6 receptions on 7 targets and 49 yards and a touchdown. This man was just a touchdown machine today on Sunday. Rashad Penny came out, and people might want to start looking at him, and he's, we're going into week 5, still healthy, knock on wood. I think that he's going to be the guy there. Of course, he's not going to do nearly 30 points every week, probably, but definitely somebody you want to have on your team if he's available. I actually found him on waivers this past week, so go ahead and look just in case. He killed it. 17 rushing attempts, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, added 1 catch for 6 yards on 1 target. He really blew it up today, and he's showing explosiveness. He looks good, finally returning on that first-round draft capital, staying healthy. That's really the main thing that's caused him to have the reputation that he does. So, Rashad Penny, looking at him moving forward. Miles Sanders, another great performance, 27 rushing attempts, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 22 yards. Miles Sanders definitely been somebody that surprised me a little bit through, so far in the season. I was off of Miles Sanders this offseason. I just really didn't think that he had this in him, especially consistently. So he's really proven me wrong so far. Again, it's only going into week 5. Things can change quickly. But he's definitely performing for the Eagles. And, man, the Eagles, they look fantastic. Only undefeated team left in the league. Offense, defense, both sides of the ball, they're really killing it. So that's going to be an interesting one. Moving on, Dameon Pierce, the rookie for Houston Texans, 14 rushing attempts, 131 yards with a touchdown, 6 targets, 6 receptions for only 8 yards. But it's nice to see him getting the pass game work there. And this is starting to be the breakout for Dameon Pierce. He definitely took over for that Houston backfield. As I mean, I definitely thought he would. I've rostered him in a few places, but he's turning it up here, and I think that he's going to continue to perform well. I don't know about 25 points, but he's definitely going to be a solid running back 2 for you moving forward, possibly a low end running back 1 if he continues what he's doing this past week. Justin Jefferson bounced back in a big way, 10 receptions, 13 targets, 147 yards, 1 rush for 3 yards and a touchdown. That's where he got the touchdown. Definitely bounced back. That's the Justin Jefferson we're used to seeing there, which just shows how good the Eagles' defense is because they really shut him down. Mike Evans, like we talked about earlier, had a really good day. 8 catches on 10 targets, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just a monster day. Just unfortunate that Tampa Bay couldn't pull out the win. Too many mistakes there. Turnover on the first possession, not even really the possession, kickoff of the game. Definitely put us behind there. Full disclosure, I'm a Buccaneers fan. I try to be impartial, but unfortunate we didn't get that win. Moving on, Tyreek Hill, 10 receptions, 14 targets, 160 yards. Tyreek Hill's been very consistent, which is the main thing that's stood out for me. He's not really been a model of consistency in his career, which is one reason why I don't roster him in too many places because I covet that. But he's not only showing that he has the upside, but he's been consistent. T. Higgins, he's actually been the number 1 wide receiver for Cincinnati the past 2 weeks. He came with week 4, 7 receptions on 9 targets, 124 yards, and a touchdown. I definitely would like him on my team. I have him in a few places. He could possibly finish as the wide receiver 1 there in Cincinnati. I know, crazy to think, but Amy, you're seeing it here. Cooper Kupp, another amazing performance. An outstanding 19 targets, 14 receptions, 122 yards, no touchdown. But he would have been the number 1 wide receiver on the week if he got a touchdown. Moving on, tight ends. T.J. Hawkinson smashed it. 8 catches, 12 targets, 179 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's really the only tight end to really blow up this week. Mo Alley Cox had a couple touchdowns, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 85 yards. He did great this week, but that's not sustainable. Travis Kelce, he did very well. 9 catches, 10 targets, 92 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, typical Travis Kelce. He's the only other tight end that really performed, up to your normal level of what you would expect. And then moving on to some duds, we got quarterback Jalen Hurts, 16 completions on 25 attempts, 204 yards and an interception, 16 rushes for 38 yards and a touchdown. Definitely not what we've seen through the first 3 weeks. He's still going to be a elite quarterback. They just ran the ball so much. Lamar Jackson, a little bit of a rougher day. 20 completions on 29 attempts, 144 yards, 2 interceptions, a touchdown, 11 carries, 73 yards. Definitely a little bit of a more down performance for Lamar considering what he's done the past few weeks. But, he's Lamar. He's going to bounce back. Just a little bit of a weird week for these elite quarterbacks, actually, overall. Not too many really stood out, to that elite tier of expected value. Finally, Matthew Stafford had an atrocious day. They couldn't move the ball very much on that 49ers defense. He did have 30 completions on 46 attempts, 241 yards and an interception, 2 carries for 6 yards and a fumble, no touchdowns. So it's a pretty rough day. I think he only ended up with like 6 points overall. Running backs, Najee Harris, 18 carries, 74 yards. I mean, he's been very underwhelming. The efficiency is not great. He's not scoring touchdowns, not really getting too involved in the passing game. I know he's not living up to that draft day value of where we drafted him at. Most people drafted him in the first round, maybe possibly second round. I wouldn't think that he would be a first or second round pick either way, based off how he's played. James Robinson, he's really killed it first few weeks. Had a very down performance here in week 4. Only 8 attempts, 29 yards overall. Only 2.9 points. A little bit of a stinker week, but he'll bounce back. He's been amazing. I never even thought that he would perform to the way that he has coming off an Achilles injury. But kudos to him. Jonathan Taylor, 20 attempts, 42 yards, 1 reception on 3 targets for 1 yard, and he also had 1 fumble. Jonathan Taylor is another one that has not lived up to draft day expectations. Now, he did start slow as well in 2021, so I wouldn't necessarily panic just yet, but this isn't what you want to see. But he's somebody that, 20 attempts, still elite usage, just not performing. But that's the whole team overall. Right now, I think I would be trying to buy low on Jonathan Taylor if you could maybe squeeze it out. That's somebody that I would be trying to acquire because you just know he's too good to be performing like this all year. Jalen Waddle, moving on to wide receivers. Jalen Waddle, 2 receptions, 5 targets, 39 yards. Deontay Johnson, 2 receptions, 4 targets, 11 yards. 2 rush attempts, 11 yards. Drake London, 2 receptions out of 7 targets for 17 yards. Terry McLaurin, 2 receptions out of 6 targets, 15 yards. None of these are really blowing out of the water at all. Definitely underperforming. Gabe Davis, another one. 1 reception, 3 targets, 13 yards. Not great. I think all of these players will bounce back. The only one I'm concerned about a little bit is Terry McLaurin, just because of how that wide receiver room has shaked out. I know Jahan Dotson's actually dealing with an injury now, so he's going to be out for 1 to 2 weeks, so that's going to help McLaurin. But Curtis Samuel is looking like the wide receiver 1 there. Moving on to tight end, Dalton Schultz. I know he's coming off injury, was dealing with an injury, but 0 points. 0 catches. 3 targets, 0 catches. Definitely a dud. Donut. You don't want to see that. Kyle Pitts, 1 reception, 4 targets, 25 yards. Another down performance for Kyle Pitts. I don't know. I might want to start getting worried about him now. We know that he's very talented. We saw it last year. Not too many rookie tight ends are going to come in and put up 1,000 yards. But I don't know where he's at right now. George Kittle, coming off injury, another one. 2 receptions, 4 targets, 24 yards. Definitely a down week there. So that's the studs and duds. Moving on to some things that I just wanted to look at from the week. Storylines here. So Mitch Trubisky was benched during the game for Kenny Pickett. They came out today and said that they're planning to continue on with Kenny Pickett. But definitely a mixed bag on his debut. 3 interceptions, which is not great at all. He actually was 10 of 13 on the time that he was in there. So all of his incompletions were interceptions. But when you go back and look at it, at least 2 of them weren't necessarily his fault. Just kind of ball got, thrown into the air and just defender caught it, or, the receiver just wasn't able to bring it in, or a little tip. I think that's a great thing at least for fantasy and possibly for Pittsburgh moving forward, is Kenny Pickett. Like I said, besides the 3 interceptions, he looked pretty good. They gave the offense a spark. George Pickens, a breakout game. That's Kenny Pickett's number 1 target. And I think that they're going to continue to grow and build together. and George Pickens might be the guy to own there moving forward. So that's something to keep an eye on here, and possibly that might even make Najee perform a little bit better because they'll have to worry about the passing game. The Tua injury, of course, I mean everybody saw that. That's a big storyline, a big point of topic of discussion right now. Should have he been playing in week 4, considering the way that he came out week 3? I mean, week 3 when he got hit and you saw that his head bounced on the floor the way that it did. I mean, I immediately thought concussion. Then they come out and say it was back injury or something. I didn't really believe that. He came back into the game, finished the game. I mean, a lot of doctors are saying that he shouldn't have played. I know I saw one report on Twitter of a doctor saying that he could lose his life if he continues playing. It's a big thing that they're looking at. I know the NFL is actually working with the NFLPA to revise the concussion protocol. I believe that's something that's actually already coming into place here real soon, where they're going to require any player that's shown concussion symptoms or instability, I believe it is more specifically, to not be able to return to the game. And that's because of Tua. So, of course, he comes back out. They let him play week 4. He gets hit again. I'm watching it live and see the way that he gets thrown to the ground. And immediately I'm thinking, oh, man, that guy, he might have got hurt on that. And then, of course, you saw that he was laying there the way that he was and how that they kept replaying it. And it's definitely a scary-looking injury. He went to the hospital, ended up being released that day, went flying home back with the team. So that's good. They said he has movement in all of his extremities. But I don't know what they're going to do with Tua going forward. They should definitely rest him for, I believe Mike McDaniel said that he's out for sure week 5. Possibly would be out longer. That's something to look at here. Teddy Bridgewater is the backup there. Next thing I want to look at is slowly but surely, Breece Hall is taking over this backfield. Still pretty much a 50-50 split with Michael Carter, or maybe 55-45 in Breece Hall's favor, but you could just see the talent there and the explosiveness, and he has the talent, he has the body type, he has the full profile, college production, draft capital. They wanted to take him in the first round. This is a guy that you want on your team moving forward. The Jets' offense is only looking better. Zach Wilson came in there, looked a lot better than I thought he would. So that offense is on the up and up. And Breece Hall is a guy that I think by the end of this year will be more or less a workhorse back, getting you 15 to 20. He's already getting you 13 to 15 these past 3 weeks. So Breece Hall, that's another guy that you should go try to trade for right now. Cordarrelle Patterson got hurt. He has a knee injury. They already put him on IR today. So that's a big loss there. And we're going to go ahead and look at some waiver wires, which will include who you could potentially pick up to replace Cordarrelle Patterson. That's primarily what I wanted to talk about for the Week 4 games. A lot of crazy games. So let's move on to some waiver wires. All right, so I got this broken up here as far as position. First, let's go ahead and look at the Falcons players. Considering Patterson is hurt, you got Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley. Tyler Algier is the rookie that they drafted here this year. Caleb Huntley, I believe, is an undrafted player from last year. After Patterson got hurt, they had about a 50% split for the carries. I believe Tyler Algier is the guy that you want to own, and he'll probably get the bulk of the work there. But I believe that Caleb Huntley might be more fit for the passing down work, so maybe more of a 3-down back. I would maybe consider adding both of them if you could, but Tyler Algier he's going to get the first shot at being the workhorse or being the lead back there. He might be the guy that you want to own, but maybe more realistically, you don't want any of these players. I'm not sure that the Falcons' running game is going to be one that we're going to be able to count on. But if you're needing running back or you just have space, I would go with Algier and then Caleb Huntley. Latavius Murray, he is planning to sign with the Broncos, or they have signed him from the Saints practice squad after the Javonte Williams injury. So he's somebody that you might want to look at. Brian Robinson is returning to practice here. He might play week 5. If he hasn't been grabbed off your waiver wire, you want to grab him now. Rashad White, he is, right now I'm looking at him as a high upside if something happens to Leonard Fournette, and he has low floor flex appeal right now. He just had, I believe, 13 points this past week. He's getting some goal line work, getting the passing game work. He's definitely somebody that you want to pick up. Isaiah Pacheco, also another high upside, low floor flex. He looked pretty good against that Tampa defense. Actually ran pretty well. When I looked at the box score, I thought that he would have even more yards than he did, because it just seemed like every time he touched the ball, the guy was going for 8-10 yards. Very explosive. Deion Jackson is another guy that you want to own. Jonathan Taylor got hurt this past week. They're looking at maybe like a high ankle sprain issue. So depending on that, that could be a few weeks. Deion Jackson is the guy that's behind him. Naheem Hines is probably already owned, but he's never been a workhorse type back. He's always going to be a passing game specialist. And I don't really see his role increasing that much because of the Jonathan Taylor injury. It does look like we got some update as well that he's looking to try to play on Thursday. So he's not really looking like a long-term issue. But I think if, at least for this week, maybe 2 weeks, Deion Jackson is the guy that you want. And moving on to wide receivers, looking at Nico Collins, he's had a 67% snap share in at least all of his games, averaging about 5 targets a game. I mean, they don't have a very large volume passing attack there in Houston, but if you're desperate, he's an option you can look at. Alec Pierce, the rookie for Indianapolis Colts, getting a 45% or more snap percentage, 20 yards per catch. He's a big play guy. He's the big play guy that they have there. I know their offense hasn't looked great at all, but he's somebody that could definitely be valuable here coming up soon, the more he gets into the offense, because he's been dealing with injury past couple weeks before this past week here. So somebody to look at as well. Josh Reynolds, the Detroit Lions wide receiver group is just decimated with injuries. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't play last week. DJ Chark was out. Jameson Williams still coming back from his injury. So Josh Reynolds right now is definitely a guy that you can look at. And even when Amon-Ra St. Brown is in the game, he's still getting a 70% snap share at least, 8 or more targets the last 2 games. And if Amon-Ra St. Brown continues to miss time, then he's going to be a big contributor there. I went off for over 20 points this past week. And Corey Davis, with Zach Wilson in at quarterback, he really seems to like Corey Davis. He averages about 7 targets a game with Zach Wilson, 13 yards per catch on average. Sky Moore, he really hasn't done much, but I really just think that breakout is coming. I would stash him if you have space. He's on a very high-profile offense with Patrick Mahomes. He's getting a little bit more involved there. I think he had 4 targets this past week. He's going to continue to get more involved in the offense. Probably more of a late season push kind of guy, somebody you can stash, but he has tremendous upside. Christian Watson, kind of similar situation as Sky Moore, rookie wide receiver, 2nd round pick for Green Bay. He was dealing with injury through most of the preseason and training camp, I believe, and first couple weeks of the season. But now he's playing. He's getting a little bit more involved. You can see that they definitely are going to plan to use these two rookies primarily going forward, maybe with Allen Lazard. Christian Watson's another good stash on your bench. And just honorable mention, if by any chance he is available, George Pickens is a priority ad. He's probably the number one ad of anybody that we talked about so far. If he just happens to be available, he shouldn't be available in most of your leagues. But if he does, then definitely get him on your team. He might be the number one wide receiver in Pittsburgh moving forward. He's definitely Kenny Pickett's number one target there. Moving on to some tight ends. Mo Alley Cox playing 50% or more of the snaps in 3 or more targets in 3 out of the 4 games. He's a low-end play with high upside, with touchdown upside. He had 2 touchdowns this past week. Definitely volatile play, but you can go with him. Will Disley, he's gotten 12 points in 3 out of 4 games this year. And I think that he's going to continue to be a consistent option there for Seattle. For Geno Smith, definitely, tight end's very hard to come by this year. That's always kind of been the case, but we thought it was going to be better this year. But consistent tight end play is very hard to come by. So Will Disley is a decent option if you're in need of some tight end help. Moving on to quarterbacks, Jared Goff. He's averaging 37 pass attempts a game, sacked only 5 times not this past week, all year long. Only sacked 5 times. He's thrown for 4 touchdowns in a game twice in these 4 weeks. If he's available, I would definitely be looking to add him. He's somebody that I think you can ride for the rest of the season, not just a streamer here for the week. Geno Smith has also looked pretty good. Averaging 30 attempts a game. He has rushing upside. He's somebody that you can look at. Zach Wilson came back, 36 attempts. He has rushing upside as well. Looked pretty good. Kenny Pickett taking over the starting job. I think that they do have some potential to get going there in Pittsburgh. And I think that he could be somebody to watch out for. I don't know exactly how good he's going to be yet, but I would potentially look at grabbing him if there's really nobody else available. That's going to be it for the waivers. Another big injury news actually that came through just recently is as far as Javonte Williams for Denver. So it is confirmed that he's out for the year toward his ACL. So also looking at potentially Mike Boone as a waiver wire ad. But I don't know. I think that they might add somebody else. So you can add him, but I wouldn't bank on him just yet. Melvin Gordon's going to be the guy anyways. I know he's dealing with a little bit of injury himself, but nothing serious. So that's going to wrap it up. I'm looking forward to another crazy week here for week 5. I appreciate you guys for listening. If you have any questions for me to answer, always hit me up on the comments. Like, subscribe, comment. I'd love to continue to grow the channel. If you have any specific questions as well that you don't want to leave in the comments, you can email me at ffwarriorspodcast@gmail.com, and I will answer your question on my next recording. And that's it. You guys have a good one.